Hey everybody, Dr. Osborne here. I want to talk a little bit today about your immune system, particularly about vitamin C and zinc. Now last week I did a video on vitamin D. I think, this is think of this as part two. A lot of people right now are just not talking about nutrients and COVID. And even though research studies are now coming out, studies on COVID-19 and different nutrients, we're still not seeing this being publicized in mainstream media. So I wanted to share with you what scientists are finding and what they're actually showing on nutrient levels and how they relate to people who have COVID, who have the severe side effects of COVID. So without further ado, let's dive into it. This research study was just recently published on vitamin C levels in patients with SARS-CoV-2 associated with ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. So here's kind of in a nutshell what these researchers found. You see down here, in conclusion, in our cohort, the level of vitamin C are extremely low. In essence, these individuals that had COVID-19 acute respiratory distress had very, very low vitamin C levels, and that we think these findings might stimulate clinicians to measure vitamin C levels in COVID-19 patients to describe the real impact of this alteration. Now, a lot of doctors around the country are already using IV vitamin C as part of their treatment protocol for COVID-19. Despite the lack of media coverage, many hospital systems actually have vitamin C as one of the staple core elements within their treatment paradigms or protocols. So I want you to take this home. This take-home message is, look, if you end up with acute respiratory distress, you find yourself in the hospital, you make sure you have a conversation with those docs who are overseeing you about vitamin C. Here's what they found in the study. People did worse when they didn't have vitamin C. Now you'll see up here, moreover, vitamin C may have implications for the treatment of COVID-19, at least according to these researchers. Indeed, one preclinical study showed that vitamin C increased resistance to infection caused by coronavirus. Moreover, other clinical studies that included surgical patients and patients with pneumonia showed encouraging results in terms of decreased incidence and severity of lung injury and mortality. Look, bottom line is this. Vitamin C is really super cheap. It's inexpensive. In my opinion, you should be taking it now if you're not already. We're in cold and flu season again. Despite what you think about COVID-19, it's a good idea. Vitamin C is just a great preventative that you can use. Now, moving on, let's talk a little bit about zinc. Zinc is one of the other ones that's kind of been thrown under the bus. Again, despite the fact that many hospitals use zinc and hydroxychloroquine as primary agents in their protocol. So this was a study published in Frontiers in Immunology. And just kind of in summary, why zinc? These are some of the different functions that zinc has. One is it maintains the adaptive and the innate immune response. It's very important for fighting viral infections. Number two, it's an important cofactor for several enzymes involved in the function of the immune system. In essence, supporting immune function, very critical. It helps in proliferation and differentiation and maturation. What does that mean? It helps in the growth and the kind of, think of it as evolution, if you will, or maturation of your lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are white blood cells, right? So it helps those cells, helps your body grow them, it helps your body mature them into fighting machines. Additionally, it helps in regulation and formation of inflammatory responses. Remember, part of how we fight infection is through making chemicals that help us deal with the infection, and some of these chemicals are inflammatory on purpose. We also know that zinc has an effect on viral biological processes, including their ability to replicate and translate their DNA. Basically, remember, viruses can hijack a cell. Once they do that, they can basically take over the machinery and start to replicate themselves. Well, zinc interferes with their ability to do that. We also know that zinc has antiviral activity by the stimulation of a chemical called interferon alpha. So zinc, very important. Now, help zinc get into your cells. A lot of people don't know this, but zinc gets inside the cell easier with what are called ionophores. Quercetin is a natural ionophore. You can find quercetin naturally in things like apples and green tea. You can also take it supplementally, but what it does is it opens up your cell's gateway, allowing more zinc to infiltrate into the cell. Now, those of you who are more biochemical geeks and want to learn more about this, you can actually access this diagram from this research study. Again, Frontiers in Immunology, you can see here, just published here very, very recently. You can access that. This diagram is available to you online. You can see all the different functions in zinc. Again, in this particular research paper, there's an overlap between those at risk for COVID-19 and those at risk for zinc deficiency. You can see who falls in the center diagram: the elderly, the obese, people with heart disease, people with asthma and other COPD types of disorders, people with chronic kidney disease. You notice the trend here. It's people that are overweight and have metabolic syndrome, have heart disease or some other pre-existing degenerative condition, and they're also the elderly. And let me just kind of point one other thing out to you. Why is that a trend? Most of these elderly individuals have these chronic pre-existing conditions, are on multiple medications. Remember, many of these medications, your blood pressure medications, are a very, very common cause of zinc deficiency. This is one of the reasons why we see this overlap, and this is one of the reasons why we see the elderly at greater risk for picking up respiratory infections. COVID-19 aside, all respiratory infections, there's a greater risk the lower your zinc level. And again, when you're on drugs that deplete your zinc to manage your chronic degenerative conditions, it's kind of a double whammy. So the best option that you have, aside from what I talked about last week, and I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video on natural things that you can do to improve your immune function without supplements or pills, make sure you go watch that, because that's your best defense. Now, if you want to supplement, you can certainly do that, but let me be clear. I'm not saying that you should take vitamin C and zinc to treat your COVID. I just got to use that disclaimer. Does that mean I think that it's unintelligent to take C and zinc right now? No, I think everybody should be doing it. It's cold and flu season, and you want to do the best to support your immune function. So, takeaway message here is research now on COVID-19 is showing that those that have worse outcomes are vitamin C deficient, and that zinc actually plays a major role in inhibiting and managing viral issues. So take-home message is talk with your doctor. If you end up in the hospital, if you end up with acute respiratory distress, have that conversation, because again, a lot of hospitals are using these as treatment modalities for COVID-19. You don't want to be stuck without these things. The best outcomes are people who have adequate C, adequate zinc, adequate D. Remember, those are the big three that we actually have solid research on at this point. So make sure you understand that these are going to be options if you end up in the hospital. Look, I'm wishing you excellent health. This is Dr. Osborne again. Click up to the right. You can watch my video on vitamin D and immune function. You can also watch my top strategies to improve your immune function without any pills at all. Have a great day.